A comment here, a disappointment there, a too much, a not enough, a bad witness, a you should be over this by now. At first they were just thin cords, easy enough to ignore. But by the time she noticed what had really happened, they wrapped her ankles, her wrists, her ribcage, looped tight around her voice. She could still move, technically. She could still sing and serve and crack jokes and survive. But every movement scraped metal against bone. Every step clanked with accusations. One night, when the pain in her back and the noise in her head were both screaming at the same volume, she pushed herself up in bed and muttered into the dark, "I can't do this. I cannot keep walking and worshiping like this. I need a ruling." The room did not change. The air did. There was a pressure shift, the way it feels when a thunderstorm is about to break. And in the doorway, without sound or fanfare, stood a warrior. He was tall and terrible in that clean, holy way. Armor like living light, scars across his face that glowed instead of disfigured. One long, jagged, brilliant mark ran right over where his spine would be if he were human. When he stepped closer, every chain in the room rattled, like metal remembering who had forged it and who had not. He did not ask permission. He just extended a hand. "Orders," he said, voice like steady thunder on the horizon. "The judge has called you in." She tried to stand and the chains caught. He did not look annoyed. He simply reached down, gathered the mess of metal up like someone scooping a tangled garden hose, and hoisted the whole snarl, her included, over his shoulder with ease. "You're allowed to walk," he added, gentler now, as he set her upright and let her lean on his arm. "You do not have to crawl into court." The hallway stretched out in front of them, but it did not look like her house. Each step shifted the scenery. Hospital ceiling tiles flickered and became open sky. Linoleum melted into gravel, then into rich, dark courtroom wood. Somewhere in there she heard old dispatch tones, sirens, church chatter, family voices, but they faded behind her as they moved. At the end of the hall was a door that did not look impressive, except for the fact that everything in her knew that once she walked through it, nothing got to stay the same. The warrior knocked once with the back of his hand. "Case file," he announced. "Her. Charges too much. Not enough. Bad witness. Failure, unfixable. Burden. Dangerous to the king's reputation. Request, full review." The door opened. The war room was a courtroom and a strategy center and a father's office all at once. Walls lined with shelves, scrolls, and files and books and digital displays that needed no electricity. Maps of lives lit up like constellations. A long table in the middle, carved with battle plans and coffee rings. At the far end, on a raised bench that somehow did not feel distant, sat the judge. Lion and lamb, father and fire. His eyes took her in as if he had known every inch of her forever, which of course he had. All the chains that had come with her clattered to the floor at the threshold. They did not disappear. They were evidence now, not identity. She stood there with empty hands and shaking legs and said the only thing that seemed honest. "Case file, me," she whispered. "I can't carry this one anymore." The accuser's table was crowded. Voices hissed without faces. Too loud, too fragile. Bitter. Look at her marriage. Look at her thoughts. Not a good representative. Unqualified. Disqualified. Look how she still gets angry at church people. Look how she wants to burn it all down. Think what this does to your reputation, letting her keep using your name. They slammed down exhibits. Screenshots of her low moments. Snapshots of her face twisted in pain and fury. Clips. Clips of her popping off in her kitchen, of her saying, "I'm done," of her wanting to flip tables and walk away. They stacked evidence until the table looked buried. The air felt tight with it. The judge let them talk until they ran out of creative synonyms for disqualified. Then he lifted his hand. Silence hit like a gavel. "Defense?" he said, though his eyes were already on her. Before she could even open her mouth, someone else was standing at her side. She knew him, of course. She knew the profile, the scars in his wrists, the way he smelled like campfire and clean laundry and rain on dry dirt. But seeing him here, in full advocate mode, still made her want to cry and hide and lean in all at once. "Your Honor," Jesus said calmly, "most of what has been presented is factually true, and legally irrelevant." The accuser bristled. "She said that, she thought that. She doubted you." "Yes," Jesus agreed, almost cheerfully, "and all of that is already covered by my blood and sealed under my name." The prosecution is attempting to retry charges that have already been settled. Double jeopardy is not permitted in this court. He gestured, and some of the ugliest screenshots lifted off the table and burst into harmless light, like ash catching the sun. As to her being too much, I would like to call some precedent. He turned slightly, voice still easy. "Exhibit Peter, Exhibit James and John. Exhibit Leah." The walls flickered. For a moment, she saw Peter blurting out answers, sinking in waves, making grand promises, and then choking when it counted. She heard him say, "You will never wash my feet," and then a beat later, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Whiplash wrapped in sandals. "Loud," Jesus said fondly. impetuous, deeply loved. Rock. The scene shifted. James and John stormed up, all fire and certainty, asking for the best seats, wanting to call down literal fire on people who did not receive him. Sons of thunder, Jesus said with that little half smile. Not sons of perfect timing and excellent tone. I gave them a nickname based on their volume. Not as an insult, but as a prophecy. I knew how I would harness it. Another turn, another scene. Leah now, tender-eyed and unwanted, naming boys like prayers. Now my husband will love me. Maybe this time, maybe now. Her ache poured into the names of her sons until finally, on a fourth baby, the pattern broke. This time, Leah said as she held Judah close, I will praise the Lord. The war room quieted around that sentence. Jesus glanced back at her beside him, eyes soft. She did not get picked by the man. She got written into the bloodline of the Messiah. Her rejection did not cancel my choosing. He looked at the judge. The defense rests on this. My finished work, my chosen precedents, and my own testimony about her. She comes here, she does not run from you, she hands you her worst. That is not disqualification, that is devotion under pressure. The judge's gaze landed on her like sunrise. He lifted the gavel. In the matter of too much, not enough, bad witness, failure, burden, dangerous to the king's reputation, his voice filled everything. This court finds not guilty, covered, called, useful, beloved. The gavel came down. The record shall reflect, he continued, that her injury is not rebellion. Her pain is not moral failure. Her exhaustion is not unbelief. Her loudness is not a liability, it is a tool in my hand. Any further accusations on these points must be filed for review and brought before me, not tried in the hallway of her mind. A gold stamp burned itself across a file with her name on it, cleared for mercy. The warrior at the door grinned. Then the judge leaned forward, expression softening from courtroom to father. Daughter, he said, you are not forbidden to feel. You are forbidden to self-condemn. Bring me your case daily. That is not a burden to me. That is our meeting. The room blurred, not in a vanishing, but in a shift. When her eyes refocused, she was outside. Same king, same presence. Just in a different chair. They were on the pergola, backyard light slanting through leaves, birds arguing in the distance. The war room bench had become a weathered porch chair. The long polished bench was now just weathered wood with a coffee ring. The shelves of files were still here, but they looked like mismatched storage tubs stacked under a potting table. Same court, different lighting. He was in the rocking chair beside her, one ankle up on his knee, hands loose around a mug. No robe, just the same eyes. Across from them, on the little side table, sat a manila folder with her name on it. The gold stamp from earlier, cleared for mercy, still glowed faintly on the tab. Modern branch office, he said lightly, watching her look around. You do not have to climb marble stairs every time you have a thought about yourself. She huffed out a laugh that felt more like a tremor. It does not feel like a thought, she said. It feels like a whole broadcast. Like somebody hijacked the channel and runs reruns of every stupid or angry or ugly moment on loop. He nodded like a dispatch supervisor who had heard this 1,000 times but never once rolled his eyes at it. That, he said, is why we have labels. He reached over and picked up a stack of bright sticky notes from the little table. They had not been there a second ago, but now they were everywhere. Tucked on the railing, stuck on his mug, flapping from the arm of the chair she was in. The top one read, for the court. He peeled it off and pressed it into her hand. You live in a world that tries to make you litigate everything in your own head, he said. You hear an accusation, you feel panic, and you start building a defense exhibit by exhibit, explaining yourself to people who aren't even in the room. He tipped his chin toward the yard, toward houses she could not see but knew were there. Family, church, work, all those invisible juries. That is not your job, he said plainly. You are not your own judge. You are not your own prosecutor. You are not even your own public defender. You are a witness, he pointed at the little sticky note. So when a thought walks up and starts shouting too much, not enough, bad witness, dangerous, this is all your fault, you don't argue with it. You tag it, he mimed it. An invisible sentence in the air, his hand slapping the for the court note onto it. The words froze like a paused video. You say, that's above my pay grade. For the court. Then you slide it across the table to me, and you go back to whatever I actually asked you to do. She stared at the floating, frozen sentence in front of them. It wasn't even specific. It was more like a gray fog of, you're a mess. But now it had a bright label stuck on it, and it could not move any closer. That feels like I'm avoiding responsibility, she muttered. He tilted his head. Is it avoiding responsibility for a witness to say, that question is for the judge? He asked, or is it respect for the process? Her throat got tight. He took the mug from her hand before she dropped it and set it aside, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Listen, he said quietly, eyes steady on hers. We already settled, am I yours? We already settled, am I called? We already settled, did I choose wrong when I picked you? The answer to all three is on that file. He tapped the cleared for mercy stamp. So every time the broadcast tries to reopen those questions, that is not responsibility. That is double jeopardy. He let that sit with her a second. The word echoing from the big bench version of him back to this porch version. Peter had a broadcast, he went on. It said, "Coward Denier. You blew it. You're disqualified. You embarrassed the king." James and John had a broadcast. Too much. Power hungry, embarrassing. Leah's said unwanted, unchosen, decorative, functional, replaceable. He watched a sparrow land on the pergola rail, hop and flick its wings. "You know what I did with Peter's broadcast?" he asked. "I made him breakfast. I asked him one question 3 times. Do you love me? And then I handed him a job, feed my sheep. I did not say, please explain to me in detail why you failed." He turned back to her, expression sharpening just a bit. "You know what I am not asking you for in this chair?" He said, "I am not asking you." For a 12-page essay every time you breathe wrong. His mouth quirked. "I am not asking you to run internal affairs on your own soul. I am asking you what I asked Peter. Do you love me? And when you say yes, I hand you your assignment for the day and we move on." He let that settle, then nodded toward her chest. "You nitpick," he added, a little amused. "You notice everything. That is not a defect, that is a tool. In my hand, it spots danger and patterns. In the accuser's hand, it becomes a microscope pointed at your own bruises until you forget you are a person and not a case file." He held out his hand, palm up. "So we are changing your job description," he said. "You are not Internal Affairs April anymore. You are Witness April. When something feels off, when a sentence kicks up dust in your chest, you bring it here, you tag it for the court, and you testify. Here's what I saw. Here's what I felt. Here's what happened. And then you let me rule on it in my time." She frowned. "But what if I actually did screw up? Like when I mouth off, or when I throw verbal grenades, or when I just flat out sin? That does happen. Am I just slapping a sticky note on that too and walking away?" He smiled, but it was the kind that landed deep. "Confession is not the same as self-prosecution," he said. "Confession is you agreeing with my truth about something. That was wrong, that was harmful, that was beneath who you say I am. You hand me the weapon, you do not turn it on yourself and start swinging." The bench from the big courtroom flickered behind him for a heartbeat, then resolved again into simple porch wood and the hummingbird feeder. "You already brought me your rap sheet," he reminded her gently. "Years ago in a field, bottle on the ground. I did not lose that file. I did not misplace it when you got married or when you got promoted or when you sang on a stage. There is no new evidence of your depravity that shocks me." He nodded toward the cleared for mercy stamp again. "That ruling stands," he said. "What we are dealing with now is not, am I still forgiven? It is, how do I walk as someone who is? Different case." She watched her hands twist together in her lap, then made herself stop. "So what does that actually look like?" she asked, a little sharp. "Like 5 a.m, back is on fire, brain is screaming, old broadcasts are rolling, and I am in this stupid recliner trying not to come apart. I'm not picturing sticky notes and benches, I am just drowning." He did not argue. He just shifted his chair closer so their knees nearly touched. "Then we make it stupid simple," he said. "You know how you move from driveway to courtroom, courtroom to porch, porch to pergola? We are going to add one more tiny move. Call it the handoff." He held his hands out like she was tossing him a ball. "When the broadcast starts, you pick one sentence," he said. "Just one. Maybe it is, you are too much. Maybe it is, you are going to die like this. Maybe it is, you ruined everything. You do not take the whole swarm. You just grab the loudest one and you say out loud if you can, even in a whisper, for the court. And you picture yourself literally throwing that sentence into my hand." He closed his fist slowly, like he was catching something midair. And then, "You do the one thing you actually can do at 5 a.m. when everything hurts," he said. "You agree with me?" He held her gaze. "You do not have to feel it yet. You do not have to see the end of the story. You just say, 'Jesus, I agree with you,' not with that sentence. That is it. That is the whole prayer. Handoff, then agreement." He leaned back, shoulders against the rocker like they had just finished a drill. "Will the broadcast try again?" he asked, answering himself with a little snort. "Of course. Accusers do not get tired as fast as you do. That is why I gave you the spirit." The wind shifted. For a second, the whole pergola flickered into something bigger. Pillars and banners and a blue fire running along the edges of the roof. The air in front of her shimmered, like heat over asphalt, then settled into the shape of a presence at her back. "Advocate?" he said softly, nodding over her shoulder. "Translator, that churning in your gut when something is off, that is not you being too much. That is your early warning system tied directly into heaven's dispatch." Her eyes stung. "I know you are exhausted," he went on, tone dropping even lower. "I know the verdicts from people who should have protected you feel louder right now than mine. So we are going to let the Spirit do what the Spirit does. Real-time nudges, green light, red light. Speak, be still. This one you answer, that one you let me handle. He smiled just a little sideways. You feel the push to text back and defend yourself? He said. You check for the nudge. If there is no peace, that is a red light. Tag the urge for the court. Let me clear my own name. I am very good at it. The presence at her back felt like a steady palm between her shoulder blades, not shoving, just anchoring her in the chair. And when I do want you to speak, he added, you will feel the words line up like ducks in a row. It will not be perfect. It will be simple, a sentence, not a speech. That is not true. I'm not available for that. I love you, but no. Or sometimes just, I need to go now. He watched her mouth twist. You are not responsible for writing my press releases, he said firmly. You are not going to ruin my reputation by having human moments. I chose Sons of Thunder on purpose. I chose a limping disciple on purpose. I chose Leah on purpose. I chose you on purpose. The sparrow on the rail puffed up, shook, and hopped closer, as if it were trying to hear. He nodded toward it. They do not earn their meals, he said. They just show up in the yard I planted. You are not earning your worth here. You are just finally eating in the yard I gave you. Her shoulders dropped half an inch. Breathe, he said, not as an instruction, more like a fact. You are sitting under a verdict that already went out, cleared for mercy. That means I will shout when I need to. I will whisper when I need to. And when the broadcasts blare like sirens, you do not have to match their volume. You just have to hand me the case and stay in your chair. Something rustled in the ivy near the steps. A squirrel popped up on the edge of the patio, tiny paws on its chest, head cocked as if it had been listening this whole time. It stared at them, then at the peanut bucket by the door, then back at them. Jesus' mouth curved. Exhibit A, he murmured. He snapped his fingers once, sharp. The squirrel jumped, then, as if collecting itself, straightened up and did the most awkward little hop-hop spin, tail flicking like it had practiced a routine and forgotten half of it. It wobbled, overcommitted to a turn, skidded, caught itself with both front paws splayed. Then it froze, like, please pretend you did not see that. She snorted. It burst out of her before she could catch it. Okay, that was a bad jig, she said, wiping at her eyes. Bless it. Wholehearted? He corrected mildly. Unpolished. A little too much. My favorite. He stood, stretching his back as if he also felt the long day in his spine, then looked down at her. This is how this works from now on, he said. This is how this works from now on, he said. The world runs one court. I run another. He pointed down the hill toward the road, toward town. Down there, the court is performance, he said. Useful or useless, pretty or invisible, too much or not enough. They call it love, but it is really probation. You stay out of trouble, you keep producing, you match their comfort level, they keep you on the roster. He let her sit with every room she had ever walked into trying to earn her seat. In that court, he went on, your nitpicking is critical. Your questions are disrespect. Your sensitivity is drama. Your limits are selfish. Your history is baggage. Your need for clarity is control. Your body's pain is inconvenient. He turned back to her, and his face changed. Same softness, but his eyes flashed hotter. In my court, he said slowly, those same things are evidence of design. He tapped her temple lightly with 2 fingers. That nitpicking, he said, high-resolution pattern recognition, I use it to catch lies and protect people who cannot see what you see. He touched the center of her chest. That too much sensitivity? Early warning system. I wired your gut to go off when atmospheres are wrong, when words do not match fruit, when a room is lying about what it is. He brushed his hand very gently over the air above her lap, as if he were acknowledging the scar line without making her move. That body the world calls in the way? His voice dropped. That is the warhorse that carried you through dispatch nights, through fires, through diapers and shame and operating tables. It is not defective, it is decorated. It wears campaign ribbons under the skin. He glanced back toward the town again. Down there, they promoted you for being unflappable, and then resented you for having feelings, he said. Down there, they liked you better when you bled out quietly in the background and called it strong. Down there, your refusal to rewrite history is disloyal. He looked back at her, and this time he did not look away. In here, he nodded toward the pergola, toward the unseen pillars glowing just beyond the visible slats. That same refusal is called truth. It is called agreement with the judge. It is called breaking a generational record. The air thickened. For a breath, it was like the whole planet exhaled and waited. You keep asking, am I the problem? He said, here's the ruling. No. You are the pattern break. You are the interruption. You are the part of the story where the judge stands up, slams the gavel, and says, enough. It stops here. Somewhere out on the road, a truck downshifted. A dog barked next door. The world kept doing what it does. He leaned down so his forehead nearly touched hers. The world says you are too loud, too honest, too broken, too spiritual, too needy, he whispered. I say, you are exactly as loud as I made you, exactly as honest as I need you, exactly as broken as grace requires, exactly as spiritual as your assignment demands, exactly as needy as a daughter is supposed to be with her father. Then he straightened and, for just a second, did what she had asked for in the court earlier. He raised his head toward the sky over the pergola and let his voice roll out, not angry, but thunder-level sure, every word aimed straight at whatever had been shouting in her. This one is mine. This daughter is wanted. This warhorse is not for sale, not for swap, not for scrap. She is cleared for mercy. She is not on trial. The air shook. A crow 3 yards over took off like it had been caught doing something wrong. The squirrel bolted, then stopped halfway up the tree and peeked back down, as if to check whether it was safe. He looked back at her with a kind of fierce tenderness. "Let them hear it," he said softer again. "Let every room that misnamed you hear it. Let every memory that says too much hear it. I do not whisper my verdicts to keep from embarrassing your accusers. I say them out loud." He sat back down, the rocking chair creaking in that familiar little rhythm. He sat back down, the rocking chair creaking in that familiar little... And the squirrel in the tree finally decided the coast was clear, scrambled back down the trunk, and crept toward the peanut bucket again, like it thought they had forgotten about it. Jesus side-eyed it, then side-eyed her. Without looking away from her, he snapped his fingers once. The squirrel jolted like it had been hit with a praise break. It popped up on its back feet and launched into the most chaotic little peanut jig. Front paws tucked, back feet doing this uneven hop-hop shuffle, tail whipping around like it was 3 beats behind the music. It tried to spin, over-rotated, and had to do this wild little grapevine skid to keep from wiping out. Then it froze mid-pose, one paw in the air, eyes huge like if I hold still they cannot see me. Her laugh punched out of her, sharp and ugly and perfect. "Oh my gosh," she wheezed, grabbing her side. "That's me." He lost it. Not polite chuckles, but real laughter. Head back, shoulders shaking. The kind of laugh that makes you feel like you just did the best comedy set of your life without even trying. "Yes," he managed finally, wiping imaginary tears from the corners of his eyes. "Exactly. Overcommitted, wholehearted, a little offbeat, absolutely convinced you are blowing it when I am actually delighted." The squirrel, deciding the show was over, snagged its peanut and took off across the yard in this jerky victory run, tail like a banner behind it. Their laughter died down into those little after chuckles, the kind that come in echoes. The evening wrapped itself back around them, a car somewhere far off, the tick of the cooling house, a bird giving one last comment from the fence. He leaned back, looking at her like he was memorizing her face in this light. "Listen to me," he said quietly. "I am not leaving this chair. Not when the broadcasts get loud. Not when the pain spikes. Not when you second-guess every move like that squirrel trying to remember the steps. I am here on the good days, on the bathroom floor days, on the 5 in the morning days." He reached over, palm up between them on the armrest, not grabbing, just offering. "You can forget the steps," he said. "You can forget every clever prayer. You can forget how to be a good Christian in their eyes. You cannot shake me off. I will not leave your side. Not in this yard, not in that courtroom, not in any room." The last of the sun slipped down behind the trees. The pergola lights clicked on with their soft halo glow, turning the wood above them into a kind of low, warm ceiling. "Tonight," he added, voice barely above a whisper now, "you sleep under my verdict, not theirs. Cleared for mercy, wanted. Kept. When the thoughts start up, you know where to send them." He tipped his chin toward the invisible courtroom doors down the driveway. "For the court," he reminded her. Then he settled deeper into the rocker, eyes half closed, the two of them breathing in the same slow rhythm while the planet turned and the little embassy yard stood its watch. The judge of all things content to spend the evening right there, shoulder to shoulder with his warhorse, not going anywhere. The pergola lights hummed softly, and for a long second neither of them said anything. The air felt full and settled, like the yard itself had heard the verdict and relaxed. Her throat was tight in that way where crying and laughing lived right on top of each other. She stared at his hand on the armrest between them, at the easy way he sat there like this was the most natural place in the universe for him to be. "I love you," she said quietly but without hedging, like a statement entered into the record. He smiled, not surprised in the slightest, like he had been waiting for that line but not demanding it. "I know," he answered just as soft. "I am not going anywhere." And then, No big special effects, no disappearing act. He simply began to fade from her eyes, the way a shape disappears when the porch light clicks off and your pupils are too slow to catch up. One blink, and the rocking Jesus outline thinned. Another blink, and the chair across from her was just a chair again, but the weight of someone in the air did not move. The other rocker still eased back and forth for a moment, as if someone had just stood up from it. The place on the armrest where his palm had rested stayed warm against her skin. The verdict words, cleared for mercy, wanted, kept, hung over the pergola like invisible string lights, brighter than the bulbs. The squirrel rustled in the tree, crunching its peanut. A car door slammed faintly down the hill. Mabel barked once inside the house, then settled. On the surface, it was just her on the pergola again. One woman, one rebuilt spine. One long day behind her. Inside, she could feel him, as solid as the boards under her feet. Not seen, but there. Not on trial, but home. The chair creaked once more in the quiet, and the little embassy yard stood guard while the night came in. The judge's presence wrapped around his daughter, whether her eyes could catch his outline or not. The verse settled over the pergola like another blanket. I will both lie down in peace and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. She let the words tuck themselves around her as the night finally took the yard, knowing that when her eyes opened again, there would be fresh mercy waiting on the arm of the chair, already there before she could even ask.